right, here I am. I'm live. Hopefully, I'm going to get Joe this time. This is the third time lucky. We did try a couple of times before 8 o'clock and it worked perfectly well. But for some reason, we are having a bit of a techno fail at the moment. So let's see if I can get her here. So Joe, here we go. Invite Joe. So she's invited now. And let's see if she'll appear. So thanks very much for tuning in to this, and I may well edit this piece off because no one wants to really see me speaking to myself. Oh, here she is. Wonderful. Yes. Brilliant. Okay, we have got Jo here and she's just coming. Hooray! I was a bit concerned there because I don't know anything about Feel the Fear training. So you want to hello, my dear. You are very welcome.
Hello, darling. It's always those things, isn't it? We test it twice, and then on the third time when we go live, it goes wrong. Hooray.
Yeah, totally. It's one of those things. But anyway, you're here now, and it's great.
Yes.
Now, Jean, it says limited audience. Let's have a quick look at that. I'm going to come back to you. I've got you on my desktop as well as mobile. So if you wouldn't mind, Joe, just a second, I'm going to just pull up Jean because it looks like maybe she's not able to get through. Make sure we have the maximum number of viewers here.
Yeah, absolutely. No worries at all. Just realised I've got a brown top and I'm sitting on a brown sofa. I'm just kind of this amorphous lump at the moment. Didn't plan that so well.
No, you look great with your golden hair shining in the light. Fabulous. Okay, great. So let's just carry on, shall we? So I'm very, very excited to have Jo here today. And Jo, if you don't mind, I'm just going to read a little bit out of your bio. Is that okay?
Yeah, please. Thank you. And it's great to be here as well. Thank you very much.
Excellent. So this is in Jo's own words. So she says, after 17 years working in the corporate world, not feeling like I was being true to myself, I redesigned my life to follow my bliss. Now I am grateful to be a personal and business coach, running workshops and retreats, teaching yoga, blogging and speaking about my experiences. I use my background in martial arts with my yoga teaching, coaching training, NLP instruction, and experience as a Feel the Fear trainer for the Susan Jeffers organization to empower others and encourage them to make positive changes in their lives. I know what it feels like to take control and transform your life because I have done it myself. So Jo is a bit of an all-around badass from the sounds of it. She's done quite a lot of good stuff.
Cheers, hon.
Yeah, and so excited to hear about it today. So shall I just launch in with the questions, Jo, or do you want to say a couple of words first?
Yeah, no, it's fine. I think it's best just to go and ask me some questions, and we'll have a chat, and yeah, hopefully that will be helpful, and we can cover the topic of feeling the fear and just doing it, as you say, which is something dear to my own heart. So fire away.
Excellent. And I just want to welcome, we've got Stephanie and Jean who are watching, so thank you so much for coming in, guys. And so the first question.
Hi, Stephanie and Jean.
So the first question is, what originally led you to seeking certification as a Feel the Fear trainer? What was it that got you involved in the organization?
Well, it was the book Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I mean, it's such a story because it was a book. Well, I didn't really know a lot about it. I kind of was aware of it. It's a pretty famous book and it's been around for a while now, 30 odd years. And I remember, I think I even had it on my bookshelf, or I knew of it, but I hadn't really looked at it. And then somebody that I had a lot of respect for said to me, actually, I think you've got a lot of fear in your life. I said, what? How is that? I'm fine. I'm doing great. You know, I'm on this kind of career trajectory. I mean, this was when I was in my 20s, I suppose. So a long time ago. And so, but I took heart and I thought, okay, let's look into this. And I read the book and it just bowled me over. I mean, it's so incredibly simple, but that's the beauty of it. And it really touched a chord with me, and I think helped to set me on the path, which has resulted in where I am now. So read the book, loved it, went to a workshop on it run by a wonderful woman in London, and went on the workshop and was really, really into it, and read the book and studied it. And the woman actually said to me, who I'm still in touch with today, actually, she said, you need to be running these workshops. Don't know about that. Trotted off on my merry little corporate path doing what I was doing, but some seeds had been sown. And then many years later, as I said in my little not so concise biog, I decided to change my life, take control, turn my life around. I'd done a lot of informal team mentoring and coaching, and I thought, right, I'm going to solidify this. And so I'm going to change what I do, change my career to something that I really want to do, something I follow my passion or follow my bliss, as I call it. So decided to do the training as a coach, travel, do all the things that I love. And it came back to me. You know, I'd also done my NLP training by this time as well. And this came back to me, this conversation, and I thought, well, why don't I write to this woman and see if she still thinks there's an opportunity to be a Feel the Fear trainer. So I wrote to her, and she said, brilliant, I'm going to recommend you to the CEO straight away. So he came back to me, Mark, and he basically got me to fill out a huge long application form, which took ages, and they're really good, actually, to their credit. They vet everyone, they look at your previous experience, they look at your qualifications, and then from basically the rest is history. So quite a story with fear, and a personal journey with fear as well, and had to go through quite a lot of my own fears when at a time in my 20s I didn't necessarily realise I had any. So that's how it happened.
Brilliant. And amazing that she managed to spot in you that you should be running the workshop. She just clocked it, that you should be there, you know, helping people as well.
Amazing.
She was. Yeah, fabulous. Great.
Yeah. And it sows that seed, you know, you just don't know. Things that happen to you have knock-on effects, and the synchronicity of things coming together. And years later, you know, there I was. So very fortuitous.
Yeah. And Joe and I met through networking, and Joe was actually running a mini workshop on this Feel the Fear content, and it was really, really powerful. And that's what sort of set it into my mind. Oh, you know, I have to work with Joe at some stage, and here she is. So grateful to have you here.
Again, synchronicity, because I was thinking I need to speak to Shola about how we can partner up on something. So these things happen, right, for a reason, hey?
Excellent. I'm going to ask you the next question, which is this. So are there different categories of fear, and should they each be addressed in different ways? And how do you decide which exercises are best for a particular individual when you're coaching them?
Sure, no worries. I'll kind of answer that in two parts. I think rather than categories of fear, one thing that Susan Jeffers talks about in the book of the same name, The Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, is 3 levels of fear. And again, it's a really simple explanation, and it's almost too simple, but when it was one of those things that just smacked me on the head when I heard it. She talks about 3 levels of fear. So at first, it all seems different. We all seem like we're facing incredibly different fears, incredibly different contexts and scenarios and situations. So she talks about that first level, and these levels are kind of starting from the surface and working in. She talks about that first level as the surface, and that can either be things that happen. So things that happen to you, for example, aging, being alone, other changes, illness, that sort of thing. Or the other surface scenario can kind of be things that require your action. So you've got to make a decision, you're changing your career, you want to make friends, but it's that surface level, and it's very situation focused. Then the second level, working down, when you start to get to the bottom of things, is not situation orientated. So it's about how it involves the ego. You know, what does it mean for me? So the surface number 1 level might be, I've got to go for a job interview. You know, I have a fear of going to a job interview. When you look a little bit closer, the below the surface level, what we're really starting to get about, and where the kind of ego is coming into play, is I'm going to a job interview and I'm scared of that. What does that really mean? It means I have a fear of rejection. It means I have a fear of failure, something like that. So it's taking it that little bit deeper, and it doesn't necessarily involve the context. It kind of strips that away. And then the way that she simplifies it, which seems really annoying when you first read it, is that level 3 is at the bottom of all fears, which is the fear that I can't handle it. I can't handle it. I can't handle the job interview. I can't handle the fear of being alone. I can't handle the fear of rejection. And when I first read that and heard her go on in the book to say, and actually, that's great, because if we know it's all about the fact that we can't handle it, and we actually know we can handle it, then that makes it a lot easier. You know, we're all here today, everybody's sitting watching, you and I, we're all here. We've handled everything that life has thrown at us so far, otherwise we wouldn't be here. We've got a roof over our heads, we've got jobs, we've got all these things that we have. So we have handled it. So we've got a pretty good track record of handling it. So I would say, for me, I always try and think about it when I'm getting myself or a client is getting muddied in the waters of, oh, but this and that. it's like, what does that really mean? What does that mean for you inside? You know, you're worried about this particular situation, but what does that, what are you taking that to mean? And how do you feel that you can't handle it? And let's look at situations like this that you've handled in the past. So I guess that starts to come into the what do I do in coaching, and which exercises do I decide are best. It definitely also depends on the situation with a client. I'm sure same with you when you're coaching. It's very much tailored to the individual person and what they're bringing that day, what the situation is, and then drawing on a tool, be it from my own coaching background, NLP, from having been a Feel the Fear trainer. So yeah, that's a harder one to talk about, you know, because every situation is different. But I think bearing in mind those three levels and trying to bring it back and simplify it to what that means. And that ultimate fear of not being good enough, not being able to handle things, and taking it from there often helps, because we can get really caught up in the minutiae. So I hope that helps a bit.
Yeah, it does. It does. And a lot of people, when they come to me for fear of public speaking, it's often around sort of fear of rejection, fear of being, doing it wrong, and then people kind of rejecting them. So, I know that that's not what you specialize in, fear of public speaking, but just in a more general sense, if you had someone come to you and said, "Oh, I'm afraid of public speaking," would you still try and kind of move it down to that third level where,
yeah,
okay, what is
I absolutely would. And that thing about doing it wrong and not being good enough is so common. Even just in the past few days, I've been speaking with a particular client who's had quite a fear ingrained in her of doing things wrong, and what will people think, and how will I look to other people, which is a massive thing. But yeah, with clients, I would look across the board, irrespective of the fear. Yeah, there's always some contextual stuff to look at, but also, like, let's strip it down, let's look at what that means, where that's coming from. I mean, this pressure on us to worry about what other people think, I think, is handed down and down and down through generations. And particularly for women as well, we have it ingrained from our mothers, bless them, and they don't mean to for 1 minute, and they've had it ingrained from their mothers. It's kind of, what will the neighbors think, and that whole, I must be a good little girl and I must fulfill my duty, and we're all running around with the kind of voice of our mothers or our parents in our heads of, oh no, you can't do that, you can't show people how you really are, you can't be vulnerable, you can't look as if you're anything other than fine and serene and managing everything perfectly. So completely relate to that.
Definitely. I think a lot of us feel that, even when, my mum's very much like that, and she grew up in Nigeria. So there's even more, oh, if people back at home in Nigeria hear about what you're doing, you're unmarried and all the rest of it.
Oh, the horror. Yes, me too. Terrible, isn't it?
And I sort of poo-poo her, but doubtless I still have some of that inside me, even if I don't voice it in such a kind of obvious way. And I'm sure that a lot of us do, which leads to these, confidence issues that we have, and so many other things. Yeah.
So much so. I think we all have that little inner critic. Well, I know we all have that inner critic inside us. Susan refers to it as the chatterbox. I've often heard it referred to as an inner critic, and that's generally how I refer to it with clients. But that little kind of voice on our shoulder that runs us down. I mean, the things we say to ourselves, it's one of my favorite exercises with clients, actually, along these lines, and around building confidence, either in women or even in guys. I get them to look at the voice of their inner critic. I mean, we would not talk to anybody else the way we talk to ourselves. We are horrible to ourselves. We run ourselves down, and I think it seeps away at our confidence. And actually, when people start looking at this voice and writing it down, which I get them to do, I get them to get it's inner critic versus inner best friend exercise, or one of my female clients refers to it as inner cheerleader, and another one of my male clients who is working on relationship building with women at the moment refers to it as inner wingman. So it's like what your inner critic says to you by default versus what, like, a best friend or someone who's got your best interests at heart would say to you. And just writing down the left-hand column, people can be quite overwhelmed. Wow, like, this is the language I use with myself. And NLP tells us that the language we use with ourselves is what programs our brain. And so we're giving ourselves, it's like a computer, you know, rubbish in, rubbish out. We're giving ourselves all these commands and telling ourselves how crap we are and how low in confidence we are and how nobody likes us and we're not good enough and all of these things. And so actually I get them to start kind of rewriting their neural pathways by taking that inner critic and saying, okay, well, what's the flip side of that? So if it's, you know, I'm, and people often use generalizations, you know, I can never speak to members of the opposite sex, for example. Well, hang on a minute, what would your inner best friend say? They'd say, well, hang on. Well, that's not quite true because, you know, you spoke to a woman in your class the other day. You spoke to a woman in the post office. You're good at speaking to women in certain situations. So it's getting the brain to start seeing things in a different way and for us to start running ourselves down less, and being our own kind of inner cheerleader, which I think really helps people boost their confidence. And yeah, I don't want to bring gender into it massively, but it's very relevant in this group today. I think as women, we have a lot of pressure to be who we think people want us to be, and run ourselves down and judge ourselves a lot and feel that perhaps other women are judging us and therefore we become the harshest judge. So banish that inner critic, replace it with an inner best friend.
Thanks for that. And this sort of work seems like it's so, even though the exercises sound quite easy, it's just so easy to slip back, isn't it, into the old ways. And that's why coaching or some other sort of intervention where you've got someone to support you is so important, because otherwise you just go back and you don't even realize that the voice has started up again and you're back to where you started.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a habit, and we need that accountability of something like coaching, because habits don't change overnight. They take some work. You know, the study of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change itself, change even its structure and function, is, you know, we need to do this gradually. We've got this kind of pathway in our brain. It's like a super highway, the one that says run yourself down. You don't even know you're doing it, you just go straight down that pathway. It's like a 4-lane super highway, and we need to start developing a different route, a different neural pathway. But that's, at the moment, that's like a tiny little overgrown path, if it's even there at all. We just start hacking that away and proactively practicing, you know, consciously forcing ourselves down that other route, so that the old habitual, not serving us so well path of running ourselves down starts to diminish and the other one starts to grow. You know, use it or lose it, they say, in terms of neurobiology. So habit forming takes a long time, and it needs that constant reminder, and that discipline. You know, coaching's work, it's worth it, but it's about investing time in yourself to make these changes, I think.
And I love that analogy you used, is this sort of, you can see all the brambles and the weeds, you know, on this. You've got to sort of pat them down and then keep walking. So yeah, I totally get that. That's a really lovely analogy. Super. All right, so let's go on to the next question, which is, and we kind of talked about this a little bit already, which is about confidence in women. But the question was, you know, confidence seems to be a recurring issue. Why do you think this is? And you already mentioned, you know, a lot of the conditioning that we have from our families. And the top tips. So would you say that your top tips to overcome confidence issues are what you said, which is having the 2 lists? Would you say that's the thing that you do the most?
That's one thing, the inner confidence versus inner best friend exercise. And like you say, it sounds so simple, but start doing it and, you know, see how it goes. It's astonishing. Another thing, again, drawing specifically from Susan Jeffers' work, she talks about how we build our confidence by facing our fears. So she talks about how we have things mixed up, a reversal in the order of stuff. So we think, you know, how often have you said to yourself, oh, when I'm feeling a bit better and more confident, I'll make that phone call. When I'm feeling a bit happier about myself, then I'll do that public speaking engagement. You know, when this happens, then I'll do this kind of thing. Whereas she actually says it's that kind of keeps you small and keeps you scared if you're not doing it and you're waiting for something to happen. Whereas actually, if you go out and do it, feel the fear and do it anyway, as she calls it, then you're going to grow in confidence because you faced your fear and your brain's going, okay, well, I was really scared about that, but actually I did it. And it's taking that in and it's celebrating that, and then going out and doing it again and doing it again. And that's what builds our confidence, rather than staying in our kind of comfort zone. It's going out there and facing our fears. I don't mean doing things, you know, ridiculous like running across roads or necessarily jumping out of planes, unless you have the particular inclination to do it. But you know, facing your fear is what helps you build your confidence as well. So that's something else I look at with clients. The inner critic in a best friend exercise works really well as well. But again, different situations, different exercises for different people, for sure.
And some people, I mean, I've had people come to me for things like social anxiety, and we've worked on almost like a sort of gradual exposure plan, you know, like go in the cafe, next time go in the cafe and speak to the barista, next time go in the cafe and speak to somebody who's sitting down reading the paper. And do you, obviously we're not talking about dangerous things here, or at least not
No.
physical danger, but do you tend to recommend that people do things, you know, like a little by little, or would you really tell people to just go for it and have a go and jump right in?
Absolutely. And it's it's like that analogy of exercise, isn't it? When we are training and we want to build a muscle, we need to keep working that muscle, and we need to start small and work up. And it's something that, same, do with clients in the way similar to what you're calling as like, what did you call it? Like exposure or gradual
treatment, exposure therapy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I would do that through another tool, and I know we're veering possibly into another question around overcoming the public speaking, but I think it's really useful here. Is a tool I use is about comfort zones. So again, it's a Susan exercise that I've drawn from Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, and it's about stretching your comfort zone. So the idea that if you stick in this little so-called comfort zone, which isn't comfortable at all because you're just terrified, because you just don't want to move and do anything, but you're not doing anything. The minute you do a little thing, it widens your comfort zone a bit, and you do another little thing, and you do something maybe a bit bigger, and before you know it, your comfort zone has moved from here to out here. And absolutely, I would suggest that it's always small and fun things that seem trivial to start with. I remember when I was many years ago reading her book, and I was like, right, okay, I'm going to do this comfort zone thing. I'm going to start really small. And I developed such a habit about walking to work a certain way. I was lucky for 7 years of my life, I was able to walk to work. And I always did that. And I was like, right, okay, I'm going to start small. This is quite funny. I'm just going to walk a different way to work, and I'm just going to appreciate everything that I see, and everything that I see that's a surprise is, oh, okay, well, that's a good message to me, that doing something out of your comfort zone brings something else. Now, I know that seems horrifically trivial, but the more trivial and fun and less scary we can make it for ourselves, then absolutely we can build up, you know, work that muscle, start small, and build up until you're ready for the bigger things. You know, leave the jumping out of a plane to a few comfort zones later, a few concentric circles later, and start with the smaller stuff and the fun stuff. Because also you want to associate, and I'm kind of again going into NLP territory, you want to associate positive feelings with it and fun. You don't want it to feel like a chore, like homework, like, oh god, this working on myself, oh, it's really hard. It's like, okay, light-hearted. You know, if people have trouble with decision making, and are angsty about even which restaurant to go to with their partner, then, you know, can they just do that? Can they push that comfort zone and just pick any restaurant? You know, little tiny stuff that makes you laugh. So absolutely, I'm so with you on the exposure therapy in stages, for sure.
Thanks for clarifying that. Cheers, Jo.
No worries.
So the next question is, from what I understand, and this is now going on to the public speaking side of things, you deal with all sorts of fears, of course, but what would you suggest to a business owner, say, who would love to speak to grow their business, but they're feeling fear and nerves, and so they end up maybe hiding behind social media or doing, you know, other tasks that don't really get them in front of their audience directly?
Well, definitely I first look at what it is that's holding them back, where that's coming from. So for example, I had this is not so much about social media, actually, it's more about a business owner. Okay, it's still relevant, actually, I feel. So I was working with a woman around her business, and she had some issues around cash flow and chasing people up for invoices, and it was absolutely doing her in. Now, we obviously looked at the kind of surface level, the transactional level, about processes and things that she could put in place as a business owner to do that, you know, terms and conditions and tracking of her invoices and things like this. But we looked a little bit more about what this was due to. You know, why was there this issue about money? Why was there this big thing? And it transpired that actually in her childhood she had to her parents were separated, and she'd had to constantly ask one of the parents for money. One parent had asked her to ask the other parent for money, and so she had this real fear of asking people for money. Where that came from, even when she had an understanding of that, it was like, and we worked through that. We talked about it and did some exercises around it. So that combination of kind of the deeper transformational stuff and understanding where it came from, as well as the transactional, right, what you're going to do, how you're going to sort your terms of reference and all the bits and pieces that you do on your website. So I think that the message there being like looking at the situation, so looking at it, where this is coming from, what it is, what the issue is, and what's stopping them. And I guess again, that pushing the comfort zone thing, that comfort zone exercise is surprisingly fruitful. It's looking at, right, what 10 things, or make it ideally more than 10 things, can I write down that I could do now? Not like I need to set up, you know, I want to go rock climbing because I'm terrified of heights, and I'm going to really push myself. That's maybe a little step too far in the exposure kind of treatment. And also it's something that you might have to organize, like what could I walk out of my house right now and do that's really simple, and listing those 10 things and just working that muscle, practicing. So business owners who are looking to go out and speak publicly but are struggling to do so, like you said, you know, start small, right? Could you throw yourself into, could you start with a phone call to somebody? Could you, well, hang on, if you're okay speaking to people on the phone, but the difference, the distinction in your head seems to be going out and speaking in front of people, well, how big is a group that feels frightening to you? Does 10 people feel frightening? Okay, what about 5? Okay, well, 5 feels frightening to you. Okay, maybe go and speak to 6, you know, and just kind of pinpoint what it is and the restrictions that are holding you back, and go out and do that. I would say throw yourself in as well, like really do push your comfort zone. For example, Facebook Live videos, you know, it's accessible to everybody now. Nobody feels ready to do it. I remember my first ones of them, I wasn't ready, but feel the fear and do it anyway, hey? So start small, look at what the issue is and what it is that's holding you back and the limiting belief, and then push yourself, you know, a little bit more every day.
Yeah, great, thanks for that. I remember reading a book by Paul McKenna, I think it was on confidence, and
Oh yeah.
he has like he has a bunch of exercises in the book, but then he puts together a little daily plan, and one of the items was to do something that makes you feel uncomfortable, because he said sort of risk is the food of kings, or it was some quote like that, you know, where you know, that's just the thing that will really build your confidence and your courage and personality to some extent. So yeah.
I love that. Yeah, do something that scares you every day. And again, caveat, people, we're not asking you to go run in the road or do anything dangerous. But yeah, Paul McKenna, great guy. He was trained by Richard Bandler, who was my NLP trainer, who was the co-founder of NLP. So he's got a background in NLP, or Paul, and I've seen him working with Richard a few times. But absolutely, you know, pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone takes us into our growth zone. So really, if we're not doing something that scares us every day, we're not growing. And that was something that was a really important realization for me, is that challenge and pushing out of our comfort zone is what leads to growth. So if you want to grow as a business owner, if you want to grow and develop your public speaking, you're going to have to scare yourself a little bit sometimes, you know, and just work at it gently. And I'm sure, I know that you've, you know, have a long personal journey with this, and this is why you're doing what you're doing. You know, I'm sure there are times when you had to push yourself around public speaking or anything. So yeah, challenge equals growth. Do something that scares you every day, and then you're moving, you're growing, you're living. Otherwise, you're just sitting there stagnating.
Absolutely. And you look back after doing it a few times and you think, wow, you know, why was I scared of that? It's really quite straightforward. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's the fear. I can't remember who the quote is from, but it's the kind of what we have nothing to fear but fear itself. And it's along the lines of, it's not the thing we have to do that actually scares us. It's our feelings around it. and I could go off on one in a kind of Buddhist philosophy tangent, but you know, it's never the situation that is the really scary thing. It's all the stuff we associate and what the feelings that we build up around it, that are what scare us. So yeah, like
Yeah.
facing that fear, you realize, like, what was that all about? Actually, the thing wasn't that scary. All this stuff I made up about it, and the longer I sit in my comfort zone making up this BS about it, then the more scared I'm going to be. But go out and do it, and it's never as bad as you think it is. So absolutely, I hear you on that one.
Yeah, totally. I know that when I used to speak before, I mean, I was really afraid of speaking in public. I had some dreadful meetings at work where I, didn't say anything, and people were sort of looking at me like, well, why are you here? You're just breathing the air and not even contributing. And then sort of becoming a singer and realizing that I had to have all the eyes upon me, then made me much more comfortable around speaking up. But as you say, so much of it is mental. I mean, you could stand up there in front of the group and say, I'm going to be rubbish. This is awful. And then it is. Or you could say, this is going to be fun. I'm going to connect with these people. Let's have a good time. And you do. So it's really just mastering, well, not just, but most of it is mastering your self-talk, isn't it? And just letting yourself.
Absolutely. Beating back that inner critic. I used to worry about meeting people, social situations, networking situations, like the situation in which I met you. So thank God I did it. Otherwise I wouldn't have met you and half the wonderful people that I've met. And instead of it's tweaking your self-talk and turning it around. So instead of going, oh my God, what are they going to think of me? I'm going to do something wrong. How self-centered as well. It was about, well, I'm really interested in people. I'm really interested in their story. And I like having fun. So this is saying to myself, instead of this is going to be awful and I'm going to do something wrong and people are going to think badly of me, giving myself a bit of a pep talk, slapping back that inner critic and saying, this could be really good fun. I'm going to see how much fun I can get out of this situation. Who am I going to meet? Whose story am I going to hear about? And instantly, like you say, mastering that self-talk is the key to a lot of things. But of course, it takes practice and training and accountability and constant working on it. But it gets easier and easier each time. But it does take a little bit of effort, to want to do it. Sometimes people have to get to the point where like, this is really frustrating me. I really want to do something about this. And that's when we end up in a coaching situation, because people are ready. They're like, I'm done with this, Amazing that I can't imagine you not speaking up in a meeting. I remember when I met you, the way you come across, because you've mastered your self-talk, and because of all your background, your history, and you breaking out of your comfort zone into singing. My goodness, what a leap in comfort zone. It just changes everything. Total game changer, for want of a less cliched expression, is mastering your brain or your mind.
Definitely. And still, massive long, I think it's just an ongoing thing, isn't it? Even sort of the most famous sort of actresses and people who are sort of plastered all over the world, and they still say they've got this inner critic and this voice that they need to shut up sometimes. So it's just never ending.
No, we think that we're the only ones that are somehow rubbish, or we can't handle it. This humaning, everybody else has got it nailed, and we're the odd ones out or something. But having coached a huge number of people now over the years, we know that everybody that sits in front of us and we have a conversation with has got an inner critic. And of course, as coaches, we also have an inner critic. We work hard because we were exposed to this to work on that and use the tools on ourselves as well. But absolutely, when I used to run the workshops for Feel the Fear, always I would start with an icebreaker, which is to ask people what they were scared of at the time, because people walk into that room and they're thinking, wow, these people look confident. How many times have we walked into a room and gone, oh God, look, everyone here is clearly so happy. We make all these assumptions that everyone's got it sussed. We go, oh no, look at me, I'm so out of place here. I don't belong here. And after we've gone through at the workshop, everyone sharing their fears, they've come in and they've seen each other as very different. They've seen each other as kind of, everyone else has got it sorted, I'm the odd one out, and these people don't necessarily look friendly to them. But as we've gone round, everyone's gone, oh yeah, I have that. Oh, hang on, I can really relate to that. By the time you've gone round the whole circle, suddenly everyone feels like a friend. They can relate to that because it's our you know, our fears and our vulnerabilities that unite us, but we're walking around under this impression that everyone's got it absolutely sussed, and they really haven't, as I can tell you from numerous clients and from my own personal experience. Work in progress will be until the day I pop my clogs. So constant work.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Jo, especially with all the tools that you've got, you know, that you still need to work on it. So it's okay for us too.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so the next question is, what is your favorite fear busting exercise? And it could be one you've already shared with us, or it could be a different one.
Ooh, well, I do like the ones that I've shared, but in the interest of sharing more tools, because as you'll remember from my talk at the networking event, I am about sharing as many tools as possible. I think that's probably why I end up talking so fast, because I just want to throw those tools out there, because I want people, you know, I don't want to sit there in my little coach ivory tower and go, no, I'm really going to share this and that. I really want people to work on themselves and be their own coach. Yes, coaching is a really good thing, obviously, and we would say that. But I think it is because it's around the accountability. But if people can do little bits of work and take away tools and work on things and help have some breakthroughs themselves, then I'm all for that. So another tool, which I think is quite useful, or it's more a way of thinking, comes again from Susan Jeffers, because we're on the subject of fear. And she calls it no-lose decision making. I really wish I had a flip chart or something at this point. I'm not that organized to have one. But basically, picture in your head what we do and what we've been brought up to do is to think that there's a right way and a wrong way of doing stuff, a decision. And it's like there's a right answer and a wrong answer, right? And picture yourself like here in the middle, and there's like over here there's one thing, and over here there's another thing, and one's right and one's wrong. And it's like, oh, which way do I go? And we agonize over it. And I think this is really important, particularly looking at female leaders, which is a big favorite subject of mine. One big thing that leaders fall down on sometimes is that ability to make decisions, and we get this whole paralysis by analysis, and we think that one course of action is going to yield massive fruit and be the right way to go, and the other direction is the wrong way, and this is going to lead to all sorts of negative stuff. It's going to almost take away from us all the things we should have had if we chose the right answer. I don't know how many times you have agonized over things. I know I have. And this concept of Susan's opened up a lot for me, because she said, rather than being here and right or wrong, she said, maybe you're just here at this point and it's decision A and decision B, option A and option B. And maybe along the way, if we have the right attitude, and we talked about this mind mastery earlier, there can be goodies, as she refers to it, along either route. So if we choose to see it, if we reevaluate also in this our definition of success, so maybe it's not the big car, the marriage, the 2.4 kids, the whatever, but we look at the other successes and the things that we can be grateful for along the way, and the learnings we can have. And on the subject of gratefulness, gratitude diary, hugely important tool for all sorts of things, but that's another story. So rather than see right or wrong, see two options and go, you know what, option A or option B, or maybe there's an option C, I don't know. Whatever option I choose, there are going to be, if I choose to see them, there are going to be good things that come to me. And even if it's an option that I change later, I go, actually, you know what, this isn't yielding the results perhaps I thought. You've learned something from that. So for me, it was a revelation. Again, it sounds so simple, and it's one thing to intellectualize, I suppose, but one thing to really feel it, that kind of embodied learning. Once I've really mastered that, like, actually, you know, if I don't think about it like that, if I am determined to see the positives that can come from anything, then I've got it nailed. You know, I get clients making decisions like that. I work with a number of clients who have difficulties making decisions, and actually it's like, yeah, start with the small ones again, start with what restaurant you're gonna go to, and just keep working up like that. So I thought of an analogy from Buddhist philosophy that I was going to mention there, and I've completely forgotten it now. It'll come back to me. But yeah, a big tool there, a kind of way of thinking, and there's so much more about it in the book. There's so much more about, you know, how to prepare yourself for that. So we kind of go in, and with the right wrong approach, or the no-win decision making, as she calls it, the traditional model, and we agonize over it, and we confuse ourselves by talking to millions of people about it. And then even when we've made, how many times have you done this? You've made what you think is the right decision. You spent ages thinking about it. And as soon as you've made that, you're like, oh no, what if it's wrong? And second guessing ourselves. And like, we've made the decision. So she talks about, you know, what to do beforehand, because obviously you want to make a relatively educated decision. You don't want to necessarily not consider anything. But once you've had a look, go with either and be determined, and then throw away the picture, throw away your expectation. Expectation kind of being the root of all heartache, because if you've created a picture in your head of how you want something to be and it looks different, you're cutting yourself off from all the opportunities of it being better than you could have imagined. So allow it to kind of unfold. But yeah, you know, we don't have to take life so seriously and see something as right or wrong. It can be A, B, C, whatever it is. Make the decision and go with it and learn from that.
And that's the,
so I hope that helps. No lose decision making. Don't do no win decision making. do no lose.
Well, that's a huge one, isn't it? Because I think especially, you know, it sounds like you do work with a lot of women who are either in business for themselves or in corporate positions. And
yeah.
Especially when you're working for yourself, there are so many decisions to be made. You know, whether it's deciding on which software you're going to use, or which, you know, package for your email list, or there's just a ton of decisions. And it's so easy to kind of get really caught up on the small stuff. Well, that costs a couple of pounds more than this one per month. You know, the sort of massive decision sort of tables of data to decide from. And so this idea that, you know, either one, if you're down to a decision, either one must be pretty decent, because you've discarded the rest. So it might just be like a whisker between the two, and it's not going to, nothing dreadful will happen if you choose one where you do end up spending, you know, a little bit more or a bit more time or whatever it might be. Because I know, you know, as a business owner myself, like there's all, and I'm a bit, I wouldn't say decision paralysis, but definitely I like to try and make the right decision. But that's such a powerful one, this A and B. I love that.
Yeah, the no lose thing. I mean, I spent back in the day when I started the business, I spent loads of time agonizing over the name of the business. And in the end, I was like, just do it. And I went with Joe Rich Communications and Coaching. It does what it says on the tin. It's not fancy. I looked into all these other things, and then, oh no, somebody's using that name, and I could have got myself in a right mess. It's like, okay, no lose decision making. Go with it. Haven't looked back. You know, at the time, it seemed like a massive thing. But you know, it's like anything, you know, 6 months later, are you really going to care? I mean, that's another good thing that's used quite a lot, as well as in coaching. Like when you look back on something in 6 months, are you going to give a, you know, rat's ass about it? Because it's really not that important. And also things, you know, this right wrong thing, we can get caught up in that right, wrong, good, bad. Remember the Buddhist philosophy bit around this, not necessarily getting religious on you, just like I find Buddhist philosophy and a lot of the stuff they say, it's brain training basically, isn't it? You know the same. There's a story about a chap who owns a farm back in the day, and he's got a son, and the son injures himself, breaks his leg, and isn't able to work the farm. And all the neighbors come and they say, oh, you know, that's really bad. That's such a terrible thing. And the man that owns the farm just says, maybe. And then a few days later, soldiers come to the town, and they're recruiting young lads for the war. And because this chap's son has broken his leg, he doesn't have to go to war. And the neighbors say, oh, actually, that's a good thing, isn't it, that he broke his leg? And the story goes on like this, and it's much more expansive than I can possibly remember. But it's all the time, the guy just says, okay, you know, it doesn't have to be good or bad. And something that can be good can then be bad later on. It's like right or wrong. You know, we're agonizing over this right or wrong. And actually, reality is subjective. There's a whole big conversation in itself. But so there is no right and there is no wrong. So we need to drop that and be prepared to go either way, and have the mindset to learn from it. You know, if we have the mindset where we're constantly looking back and second guessing ourselves, and going, oh, see, I knew it was the wrong answer. Well, you know, that's how it's going to feel. Whereas if we say, no, I want to, I'm going to go with this, I'm not going to agonize over it and give myself loads of lost sleep over it, and I'm going to find the good from this, and I'm going to learn from it. So I might be labouring the point there, but it's something that really helped me a lot. So it's a big fave of mine.
Absolutely. And I love the piece as well about throwing away expectation, because that's such a huge one. And when I speak to entrepreneurs, one of the points I tend to make is that business is an experiment. You can't expect to do a little bit of marketing and then boom, at the end of it, I predicted I'm going to make X £100 and it just pops out like that. It's part of working for yourself and having all those choices available to you rather than having a boss that's telling you what to do. You can call it a price that you pay, or one of the exciting things about that is this fact that we're taking a voyage into the unknown to some extent. We're not sure how things are going to work out, and that's the beauty of it. It could be amazing, it could be a bit crappy this time, but then you just change your course a little bit and then next time it's better. So that's a huge one. I really like that, throwing away expectation.
Yeah, the not knowing is so important, because when we know something, I mean, if you knew everything that was going to happen to you in your whole life, kind of what would be the point in living it? Whereas if you don't know, then you're open to the possibility of anything happening. I remember reading a book called Not Knowing, and it was a fantastic insight. And yes, throwing away the expectation. These issues come up again and again, and they're ones that I've actually tackled in my blog, that the not knowing, you know, and the challenges growth, and the kind of being open to possibility and throwing away the picture in your head of how you think it should be. They're things that apply in all different situations, as much as in public speaking arena as in life, and they are so useful. Yeah, that picture in our heads, we could do with being open to it could be even better. I mean, we have a great imagination, but it's maybe limited to our own experience and things that we know. So if we can picture something, by all means visualize things. I mean, we know that visualization is a great tool, right? And we know that athletes use it, and it's a great thing. But once you've kind of visualized and set a course on where you want to be open to it looking different, because it could be even better than our imagination can fathom. But if we're like, no, I have to know, I need my structure, then we're kind of boxed in, aren't we? Whereas if we are just open to it, and I'm doing the body language here, you know, this feels really boxed in and confined, doesn't it? And it's structured and it's knowing, but then when we're open and expansive, it just feels so much different.
Absolutely.
So yeah, chuck the picture away.
And just before we move on from this one to the last question, I was looking at something on YouTube yesterday, and it was talking about when you're running your business, instead of having it's great to have plans and 90-day goals and all those sorts of things, but instead of making sure that everything's just perfect before you start, just do you know, I guess they call it the minimum viable product, or just enough to get yourself out there. And then once you're out there in the business world, or, you know, with customers around, then you can start to tweak. And again, I think as women, we can be perfectionists and want everything to be just so, and we plan and make it, and it's going to be like this, and only when I've got all these bits I'm going to start. And then things don't work out how we wanted them to anyway initially. So just get out there. You might look a bit sort of rough and ready in places, but it doesn't matter, because you're learning all the time and you can refine on your journey.
Such a good message. I'm doing this pointing myself as a perfectionist. I mustn't label myself like that. Any good coach knows that we shouldn't be labeling ourselves and, you know, owning our limiting beliefs. But yeah, reformed perfectionist maybe here. Yeah, my website, for example, you know, back when I started, I was all kind of, it has to be perfect and this, that, and the other. And actually, it's better to go with something, like you say, minimum viable product, and get out there, than sitting there trying to perfect something. At least you're taking action and you're doing it. You know, I don't mean go off half-assed, but when you've got something, any good business strategy involves constantly evolving and constantly expanding and adapting your offering. So you're never going to be perfect doesn't exist anyway, as we know, but you're never going to have the perfect website that's going to be, you know, unchangeable and serve you throughout the course of your business. You have to make that decision, push your comfort zone, feel the fear and do it anyway, to press that button. For example, you know, put put the website live, push the button to put the first blog live. I remember that was a a big challenge for me, and accept that it's going to be what it is. It's going to be you. It's not this kind of perfection thing that kind of doesn't really exist, but we think it does, and it's way off somewhere. This is what you've got, and this is who you are, and you're going to constantly change that. My website's changed over the years. My blog's been added to. I've changed the way I look at things, also in response to your customers as well. You're, in my case, my coaching clients, looking at what they want and understanding it and doing workshops based on that. So it's going to change, and you can keep, and you should, I hate the word should, but you will want to keep changing it. So yeah, get it out there. Absolutely, that's such a great point, Shola.
And that's another reason not to make things too perfect, isn't it? Because if they are, if you spent sort of £10,000 on your website and had people working on it for 6 months, you're going to be so reluctant to make any changes. And so I think we can give ourselves a hard time when we're starting out, as you say, for things not looking like Marie Forleo or Oprah Winfrey's website or something. But at the same time, they've got tons of resources, teams of people to work on their resources, whereas we don't have that. So it's okay to have something out there that's, as you say, that reflects you and where you are at the moment. It will get better.
Yeah, and be yourself. I love the phrase flawsome, be flawsome. Just be who you are. I remember agonizing again, looking at the website and going, oh, do I need 2 separate websites? Because I also do communications projects for people. So should I keep that separate? Should I have a very corporate communications website? And then, they might not want to know that I'm a yoga teacher and a coach. And in the end, I was like, just stop agonizing, stop being a perfectionist, and also go with it. Be who you are. And actually, maybe there are people who are put off because my website isn't slick, corporate, whatever. But then, do I want to work with those sorts of people? The more you put yourself into your business, the more you're going to attract like-minded people to work with. So in a way, that kind of self-selection, I think particularly in the early stages of a business, we tend to want to appeal to everyone, want to be all things to all people. When actually it's, taking a bit of time and changing and developing your niche and understanding who you want to work with. Not just like, oh my God, I have to be, an attractive proposition for everybody. No, I don't necessarily, want people who are going to get caught up in, they want a super slick website. Maybe that's not my audience. And maybe and actually it's absolutely truthful that thank goodness I didn't split up my kind of yoga and my coaching and my corporate, my kind of more communications piece, because people come to me because of who I am. They'll say, oh, I see that you've got, I'm really looking for coaching, and I do yoga too, and that's what set me about, on this journey, and this has really helped me. And so those elements of you that you think you have to perfect and shine into something polished, that you have this picture of in your head, no, put yourself out there, absolutely. And then you will attract and work with like-minded people. I put my values on my website too, because I want to work with people who have similar values. So yeah, go put yourself out there with your minimum viable product, and put yourself out there for sure.
Yeah,
feel the fear.
yeah. And it's so important these days as well, when there's so many people out there with similar messages. I think the more that you show the multifaceted side of yourself as an individual, the better, because as you say, people can choose. Then it's easier for them to choose based on something real rather than shiny website or beautiful branding or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and they can relate to you. There's a great article, it's a couple of years old now, about the incoming Uber chief exec at the time, writing a memo. He was ex of Expedia, so he wrote a memo to staff at Expedia, and it started with basically the words, I'm going to something unknown and I'm scared. I'm paraphrasing here. And it was like, wow, this guy we can really get on board with. He's some high-powered CEO, and he's just admitted he's scared. Suddenly we all relate to him. I mean, it was a great example. It was hailed at the time as a great example of this kind of new leadership in terms of showing vulnerability and bringing people along with you because they can relate to you. In the workshops, when I ask people to go around the Feel the Fear workshops and express their current fear at the moment, I start because I don't want them to think, you know, I'm here facilitating the workshop because I've got it sussed. No way. I'm here facilitating the workshop because I've come through this, and I've had a lot of fear, and I've still got a lot of fear. So I think, you know, going out there, sharing yourself, is going to be much more relatable than someone who's very polished, you know, has had a very professional organization do their website. Nothing wrong with that, but that's a different person to me, and that's a different person to the people I want to work with. And I think the more you can show yourself within your business, the better. Like you say, you know, in a world where there are so many business people out there, there's no other you out there. So
yeah, thank you for that. So the last question is, what has been the biggest or the most exciting transformation that you've seen in one or some of your clients after working with you? Because we all want to dream big and know that huge transformation is possible. So we'd love to hear a testimonial or a story from you, please, Jo.
Yeah, and it is. It's one of those things. There've been so many transformational situations. There's been women who've walked out of a relationship that's been making them unhappy for years, and gone and started a new life. I even had a client of mine who went and started a new life with a new man in a new country, and lots of breakthroughs. People. One girl that I work with, and I say girl, I was flabbergasted. You know, a lot of women I work with are sometimes a little bit older, sort of 30s and beyond, because it may take a little bit of time working out what you want before you go, oh, I want to change my life around. And that's usually when people come to me, and I want to do that through coaching. This girl was in her early to mid 20s, and she'd already worked out, I mean, hats off to her, that what she was doing in her career just wasn't fulfilling her. And basically she left that, went and traveled around the world, is finding so many more kind of strings to her bow and doing different things. So there's lots of big transformational stories like that. But also, in the interest of relatability as well, I think it's good to talk about mini breakthroughs and things that happen each session, like, you know, like this chap I told you about that is now going out and speaking to women in certain situations. Also, I had another client. A lot of my clients are women, but I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's that I'm a big advocate of men being able to express themselves, and you know, we have our own challenges as women, but I think men are very much encouraged in their upbringing and through society to kind of man up. I hate the phrase man up. Oh my God, it does me in. You know, rates of young male suicides going up because of this. They don't feel that they can express themselves. So when I get a male client, I understand he's coming with a different set of challenges. And I had one guy that came to me, very, very successful, you know, executive, kind of early 30s, you know, real high flyer, but experiencing a feeling of wanting to get out of that, and unhappy and wanting to make changes. And he said to me at the first session, I'm here because of my wife. I didn't want a coach. You know, it's almost like a coach is something to be embarrassed about. I don't need help. And the real personal reward to me, because we do it because, you know, we love seeing people change, is after a few sessions, you know, been working with him for, you know, maybe a couple of months, he came to me, and he'd previously said, oh, I'm not every session, I'm, you know, kind of here because of my wife, and, you know, I'm not going to tell people about what I'm doing. This impression that they would think less of him. And he said to me, a bit sheepishly in one session, yeah, I had a barbecue with a load of friends the other day. You know, I said I wasn't going to tell anyone that I had a coach. Well, I decided to tell them. I was like, oh yeah, how did that go down then? He's like, well, they didn't think any less of me. In fact, some of them said, oh, right, that's your secret. We noticed something different was happening, you know, cool, tell us all about it. And it started a conversation. So again, expectation, drop the expectation. He had this expectation in his head that people were going to think less of him, that he somehow needed support, that he wasn't good enough by himself, that they'd think that. He started a fantastic question about coaching and about self-development. And for me, those little things, you know, the big transformational things are wonderful, but that might not be within somebody's reach in the first few sessions, or even in a few after that. So the little kind of, you know, kudos, the little things that make a real difference, the little times when people have a change in their mindset, and like, they come and they go, oh, you know that thing that I always do, where I always react, you know, I didn't do it the other day. and it's things like that that really, for me, there's the big transformational stuff, but there's also the little small wins and the small victories. And it just reminds me actually of a blog post I wrote probably a year or so ago about how following your dreams and finding your vocation might not be a big holy grail burning on the hill going ta-da, and sometimes that puts people off. They're like, oh my god, I'm not ready for this big thing yet. Where, or they want this, I don't know what my vocation is, there's nothing that's really been screaming at me, I'm doing this is my little holy grail here. But actually it's the smaller things, it's the whispers, not necessarily the shouts, and it's those little day-to-day transformations. And it's kind of like, listen to stuff and keep going with it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a great big beacon on a hill, screaming at you, this is the sign you've been looking for. It's often the little things, and the more we practice and the more we follow those little transformations or those little inklings of what our vocation might be, what the direction of our business might be, and we make the decision. We don't go, oh my god, it's not a big holy beacon calling at me, or right decision, wrong decision. We go, that sounds good, I'm called to that, even a little bit, something niggling, and go do that. So here's to the big transformations and the holy grails, and they are always astounding when people make huge life-changing decisions and go off and follow their dreams. But your dream might be a little calling, it might be a little whisper. So the mini transformations are great too. That was the most long-winded answer ever, but that's the stuff that makes me want to get out of bed in the morning, the little victories that people have.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because I'm a big fan of Jack Canfield, who wrote he edited a lot of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books, and he's got a book called The Success Principles, and in that he talks about the direction that you're on, and you might just change. Let's say that if you're thinking about 360 degrees, you may change your direction by 1 degree, but as you go further and further, that takes you so much further than where you would have ended up if you didn't take that little 1 degree change. So although you may think you're doing a very tiny thing by opting to walk a different way to work or whatever it might be, that can actually balloon and become something really huge. So as you say, those little whispers are really important, because it's just that makes you do something tiny bit different, and then everything can be different from there.
Absolutely. I love that analogy about the little degree, because if you keep going in that trajectory, it goes from there, and it widens out and takes you on a completely different path. And again, that's the kind of not knowing, and the benefit of being a business owner is you are open to, you can make those changes and change where you're going and be open to whole new possibilities. I really like that. I'm going to keep that picture in mind, that 1 little degree shift, 1 little degree shift could take us to, it's like the whole sliding doors principle, isn't it? One little thing, although we shouldn't start getting hit up about decisions and think that life's going to be different, and all the wrong, not that path. But it's true, a little thing, a little degree of change can lead to big things, can lead to differences in people you meet. Had I not faced my fear about and done a little thing about going to the first networking meeting, then we wouldn't be having this conversation today. My business wouldn't be where it is. There would be so many changes. So I really like that. I've got a little protractor picture in my head now of the little degree.
Take you back to school with your little plastic protractor, and
yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing.
Brilliant. Well, this is the last thing I want to ask you, Joan, and just to wrap up, this has been really, really helpful. And I think when we spoke originally, I said, oh, let's speak for about a half an hour, and now it's 9:10, so we've really been going.
Oh my god. Sorry.
Actually,
we've just given lots of tools.
Yeah, it feels like 5 minutes. Really, it's gone so fast. So yeah, I really want to thank you for speaking to us today, and just to sum up some of the bit, I've sort of been scribbling a few notes down here, but some of the things that Joe's shared with us are, when we're making decisions, instead of having right or wrong, there's A and B, and either one can be good, and there's goodies along the way for us. And then Joe also shared about having a list. So when you've got your inner critic, you might have the list of the things that the critic will say, and then the things that your inner sort of wingman or wingwoman or support person would say. Is that right, Joe? Have I got that right there.
Absolutely. Or I traditionally call it inner critic versus inner best friend.
Right.
You know, if you had a friend voice speaking to you. Yeah.
Yeah, so doing this like that. Thinking about most fear comes back to the three levels. You've got the surface fear, you've got ego related, and then you've got there's this deep-seated fear that I can't handle it. And working with that is the thing that will really transform everything for you. Joe shared much more than that, but for those of you who just kind of scoot to the end to get the summary, which I
To get the good bits.
what was that, Joe?
To get the good bits, yeah, just
Yeah.
fast forward to the good bits. The other one that's quite good is the comfort zone. So listing 10 things that you could do straight away, 10 small fun things that you could do just to push your comfort zone as well. So that's another for these people skipping to the end. I wouldn't want them to miss that, because that's a pretty useful one.
Brilliant. I'm scribbling them down myself. I love all these. Super. So Joe, before we say goodbye to you, would you like to share with us where people can find you? And if they'd like to work with you or hear more, you know, where can they go to, please?
Absolutely. Well, firstly, just thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to do this. It's great to have a chat with you and catch up again, and it's great to be able to hopefully share some tools. You know, that's what I want to do, is just share some tools and help some people out. That's why we do what we do. And if people do want to work with me, find me. So my website is joeritchie.com. So that's Joe, J-O, girls version, and then Ritchie is RITCHIE.com. Go on there. There's a little pop-up box that comes up, and you can, if you want to sign up for updates, then you can receive like a free kind of PDF giveaway of tips to help you be your authentic self, even when kind of you feel like the world's telling you to be somebody else or who you should be. It's like around maintaining your authenticity, knowing yourself, and how to share that with others. So head on over to joeritchie.com for free PDF giveaway. And also check me out on social media. I'm always trying to share things that are useful, my own content, sharing other useful content around self-development, around coaching tips and tools and quotes. So Facebook, Follow Your Bliss Always. And my blog is followyourblissblog.com. So yeah, chat to me, reach out, ask questions, grab a free PDF. I just hope that's useful.
Brilliant.
And there are lots of resources on the website as well. There's videos and links to all sorts of articles and webinars and things. So yeah, go head over there and yeah, fill your boots.
Excellent. Well, it's just been such a pleasure to chat to you, Joe. It really has been, and to hear all your tips and tools and tricks that we can apply to help ourselves get over that fear. Because it's not about not feeling fear, is it? It's just about getting through it.
Exactly. All those people that are doing stuff and you think, wow, they must be fearless. No, they're not. They're just feeling the fear and doing it anyway. You know, they're pushing past it, and that's the only difference.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for your time, Joe. And everybody flock to Joe's website and download that PDF and just say hi. So if you were listening to this, why don't you just reach out on social media or some other way, contact Joe, tell her that you appreciated hearing her words of wisdom, and go from there. So thanks ever so much.
Bless you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely to chat to you.
Take care. Speak to you soon.
Take care. Speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.